Gerald McCoy has decided on a new team for the 2019 season. It was between the Cleveland Browns, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Carolina Panthers. And ultimately, Gerald McCoy went with the old rival, the Carolina Panthers. Gerald McCoy has signed with the Panthers after being released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers not too long ago, and those three teams were really in on Gerald McCoy, but he ultimately went with Cam Newton and the Panthers. Gronk, spike the like button, subscribe to The Bottom Line View if you haven't already for more NFL videos just like this, and comment below your opinion on this signing. Do you think it's a great signing by the Panthers? Are you kind of not sure how this is going to work out for the Panthers? Or do you think this is a great move for Gerald McCoy personally? Let me know in the comment section below. Gerald McCoy, a new member of the Carolina Panthers, signing a one-year contract worth up to $10.5 million. There's a lot of incentives in there, so level of play is going to come into how much he makes in 2019. But for Gerald McCoy, there were a few reasons why not only signing with Carolina, but why I think this is a great move for his career. And the first one is Gerald McCoy has never been able to be on a winning football team, a team that has had playoff aspirations, a team that has really been deep into January, or a team that's even had a chance really at making a run in a season. And I think Gerald McCoy desperately needed this for his career. He needed a change of scenery. He needed to go somewhere outside of Tampa Bay to rejuvenate his career, because last season, even though he's still a good player coming into this year, he did drop off a little bit. He had a still great year in 2017. 2018, PFF ranked him as the 28th best D tackle in the league, which is not Gerald McCoy standards. This is a guy that's been a 3-time All-Pro, a 6-time Pro Bowler. He's been an elite player at the defensive tackle position for basically his entire career since being drafted 2nd overall. So basically, Gerald McCoy needed to go somewhere else, and I think the place he needed to go was a place that would not only utilize his skills the best, but also a place that would win, and he would be motivated feeling to go there and to really play on a winning football team. And I think Carolina is a perfect destination for him. Now, why did he choose Carolina over Baltimore or Cleveland? Because Baltimore and Cleveland are both kind of looked at as teams that are promising, are on the same level as Carolina in terms of these teams are projected or predicted to do well in the 2019 season. Carolina is a team that some see not being as good as a playoff team. Some people see them going back to the playoffs. So Carolina is kind of up and down with some people. Cleveland, everybody's on the train with Cleveland. Everybody thinks Cleveland's going to do something this year. And for Baltimore, they were in the playoffs last year. So that being said, I think there were some reasons. Now, Cam Newton is said to be a big one from Adam Schefter said that Cam Newton was the salesman. He was the guy that sold Gerald McCoy on Carolina. And me thinking the way I do, just taking a look at this, this really makes me think that Cam Newton is well on his way to being very healthy coming into the 2019 season. Because if Cam Newton wasn't able to sell Gerald McCoy on the fact that he was healthy, why would Gerald McCoy sign with the Panthers? Really makes no sense to me, because he wanted to go to a winning team. He wants to win. And without Cam Newton, the Panthers are not winning. So that's another positive for Panthers fans out there to know that Cam Newton is looking good right now at this point in his recovery. Second thing is, there's a personal rivalry between not only Gerald McCoy and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but Gerald McCoy and the guy who they replaced him with, Ndamukong Suh. Remember, these two guys entered the NFL at the same time, and Suh went 1 pick ahead of Gerald McCoy. Plus, they gave Suh Gerald McCoy's old number, basically disrespecting him in the process and letting him go and not keeping him around or paying him what he should have earned. So, that being said, Gerald McCoy is going to go to Carolina because of Cam Newton, and because the second reason being that he wants to get back at the Bucs, and what better way but going to a rival and playing them twice a year within the NFC South. Third reason is the familiarity in the NFC South. He knows that schedule. He knows that routine. He knows the Saints. He knows the Atlanta Falcons. He knows kind of that season and how it unfolds. So it's a similar type of schedule. It's not too far away in terms of where he's going to be playing, Tampa Bay to Carolina. It's not that far away. So that being said, I think that's another reason. And then probably the last reason is the scheme fit in terms of how he fits within Carolina's defense as opposed to the defenses in Cleveland and the defenses in Baltimore. When you're talking about Baltimore, it's more of a 3-4 type of defense, which in a base scheme, which Gerald McCoy has never really played. He's always been a 4-3 defensive tackle, and he's not really that style of player. So he would have had to learn more of a different type of defense, different rules, different assignments. And this point in his career at 31 years old, it doesn't make too much sense for him to go there when he could just go to Carolina in a defense that's very familiar to him and a scheme up front that's very familiar to him where he can maximize his potential and his skills as a player. And then when looking at Cleveland, it's not too different in terms of scheme, but I do think that Carolina is the closest thing that he'll have in terms of familiarity between the Buccaneers and Carolina. Now, Carolina is known for getting the best out of their defensive tackles. They're known for having a strong defensive line, especially with Ron Rivera as their coach. So that being said, I think Gerald McCoy really looked at that as well and saying, this is probably the best place where I can rejuvenate myself and have another great season within my career, because this past year might have not been my strongest. So I want to go somewhere where I can truly maximize what I have left in the tank for these next few years. But just let's focus on this year. And maybe he looked at Carolina as the place where if he goes to this team, they have the best chance out of Cleveland and Baltimore to potentially make a run. Maybe that's because of Cam Newton. Maybe that's because of the coach or the defense or Luke Kuechly or the guys surrounding him, but maybe McCoy also felt that was a reason. But looking at how this is going to affect the Carolina Panthers and the NFC South in 2019, I wouldn't be surprised if the Carolina Panthers do end up winning this division and do end up going to the playoffs this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if they just didn't win the division, but they made the playoffs just in general as a wild card team. Regardless, I think that's what Gerald McCoy is looking for. And I think the Panthers have maybe, just as good of a chance of making it as both the Ravens and the Browns, if not a better chance. When looking at Carolina's team, I think they made some improvements over this offseason. I think they added real strength on their offensive line, and I think they added some depth to their defensive line. Not to mention some of their younger players are getting a little bit more experience in the wide receiver core and in the secondary. So that being said, I feel like Carolina is one of these teams that a lot of people are sleeping on, and just adding Gerald McCoy to this mix could be dangerous for their defense. Now, looking at the defense for the Carolina Panthers, obviously you have Quan Short, who didn't have his greatest season of his career last year, but coupling him with Gerald McCoy is going to be something that the Panthers really haven't had since the early years of Short and Latulele in terms of a defensive tackle combination. And then you also add in Dontari Poe to the mix. You have Vernon Butler in there and a couple of other players in the mix as well. You're talking about a defensive tackle rotation that is amongst the best in the NFL. So you have the fact that, okay, Dontari Poe is probably going to play on some obvious rundown situations because he's the big body. He's the guy that's going to take up some space. Gerald McCoy can play less snaps there because he can come in on obvious pass down situations and get after the quarterback and keep him a little bit more fresh than what he was asked to do in Tampa Bay. So that may help his career in general and keep his longevity going in general. Quan Short, that can help him out by not being double teamed all the time. Gerald McCoy can help him in that regard, so it's going to get the best out of Quan Short. When looking at the defensive end rotation, I really like the Bruce Irvin signing, but you have Brian Burns, who you drafted in the first round. Mario Addison's a 10-sack guy, and Brian Cooks Jr. as well in the defensive end rotation. This is shaping up as a good defensive line. I wouldn't say it's elite, but depending on how good Brian Burns is and how much you can get out of Gerald McCoy, it certainly could be elite in 2019. And that's really where the Panthers, when they were at their peak as a defense in 2015, their defensive line was dominant. So we'll see if they can get back to that this season in 2019. And then just talking about Luke Kuechly and Shaq Thompson behind them, their secondary has some talent. It has some young, promising talent. James Bradbury, Dante Jackson. Eric Reed was promising for them last year once he got signed. And I thought he was really good for them for the most part last year. So I think this is probably going to be the best secondary they've had in quite a few seasons, because their secondary has been really, really, really bad for quite a few seasons for the most part. And last year it wasn't terrible, but I mean, I've seen better, definitely. Their defensive line, hopefully it helps out in that regard, because the quicker you get to the quarterback, the less you have to cover. Overall, though, I mean, I think this is a really solid signing. Signing Gerald McCoy. It's only 1 year. I know there's going to be people out there saying $10.5 million up to $10.5 million. That's too much money. It's only one season. And at this point in the NFL calendar, you're not going to be signing anybody that's worth any money. So you might as well use up all your cap now. You don't even have to have him on your team next year if he doesn't work out. At the very minimum, you're getting a player that has at least been really good / great in his past, that's going to come in and at least compete and be a player for you. And at the maximum, he's going to be a Pro Bowl caliber dominant defensive tackle. So I really see no downside. I love one-year contracts in general, and Gerald McCoy, this is a great signing for Carolina, and I think this is a huge addition to their defense that's going to help them a ton in terms of the versatility, in terms of all of the things that they can now do on the defensive line. The D-tackle rotation just got a ton better. The defensive line rotation just got a ton better and a ton deeper. And that's what you need in the 2019 NFL right now. Let me know in the comment section what you guys thought of this signing by Gerald McCoy going to the Carolina Panthers. If you loved it, let me know. If you hated it, let me know. Gronk, spike the like button if you haven't already. It's Mitch here of The Bottom Line View. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you. Peace out.